broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar and around the world at wadr.org. First, startup stories. Nationwide demonstration intensifies in Ghana over what opposition calls growing undemocratic trends.
Ghana is a democracy country. Ghana is a democracy country. What your mama is doing, we don't like it.
What we are marching for is for the provisions of human rights in our constitution to be guaranteed.
Take It Back movement in Nigeria protests deteriorating economic and security crisis.
The government is constitutionally sanctioned with the duty to secure the lives of Nigerians by virtue of Section 14 of the Constitution, but they have incurably failed in this regard.
Benin's new Senate elects first leadership team after its installation in July. And in Senegal, a court convicts 3 pro-Pastef commentators for remarks against the head of state. Please stay tuned for the details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Veronique Joy.
Glad to have you join us. We begin in Ghana, where a nationwide protest is taking place today under the theme Democracy Under Attack. The demonstration, being organized by the main opposition, New Patriotic Party, NPP, aims to raise concerns over the country's constitutional order, democratic values, and the independence of state institutions, while calling for stronger commitments to justice, accountability, and due process. Here is a highlight of the protesters.
We expect to see that those petitions are acted upon. But more importantly, we expect to see civil society, all Ghanaians, to complain about this. This is not an NDC problem or it's an MPP problem. We love our democracy. More than the petitions, it's important for civil society, everyone to understand that what we are marching for is for democracy. What we are marching for is for the provisions of human rights in our constitution to be guaranteed. Something that we thought was guaranteed, it now looks like it's under threat. If we don't speak up now, then it will continue. If it continues, our democracy may die.
Ghana is a democracy country. Ghana is a democracy country. Ghana is a democracy country. What your mama is doing, we don't like it. We all belong to Ghana. We are Ghanaians. We are Ghanaians. We belong to Ghana. So we are doing democracy, justice.
This current government is suppressing dissenting opinion. We cannot have a government where the citizens cannot have the opportunity to express their frustration and disappointment. This government gave the Ghanaian people a lot of promises, lofty promises, and they have not even achieved 5% of the promises they gave the people. And what happened? When you speak, when you express yourself, when you share your frustration, when you register your disappointment, then the police, the national security is used to come after you. We can't build a nation that way. Even Jerry John Rawlings of blessed memory, who was a military man, allowed people to express themselves. So we are saying that enough is enough. Enough of the selective application of justice. There were NDC people who were before trial. This government promised the Ghanaian people that they will fight corruption at all levels. Is that not the promise they gave us? Today, the NDC members who were before trial have been given the opportunity to go and enjoy life freely.
We want our laws to be obeyed. That kind of infringement on people's rights must be curtailed. So we want the proper democracy to be expanded by the NDC. That is why we are here.
Those were the voices of protesters at Ghana's Democracy Under Attack protest by the New Patriotic Party, NPP. Meanwhile, our correspondent Nadide Tete joins us live with further details on the ongoing protest in Ghana. Hello, Nadide. What's the current atmosphere of the demonstration?
Well, at the moment, the demonstrators are on their way to the Jubilee House, which is the seat of government. And so they are on their way to present a petition. The protest started somewhere around where Ghana Supreme Court is located. They gathered there early in the morning, around 6, 7 thereabouts, where they had some of their leaders address them before they set off. Their first stop was at the Supreme Court, where they presented their first petition. At that point, a lot of them wanted to go inside and present the petition, but the police said no, not all of them can go. So a select few were chosen to go and present the petition at the Supreme Court. From there, they went to the frontage of the Yoko and stood there for a bit, and then they walked through the principal streets, went towards the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, and then they made a detour to another area around the A4 Sutherland Children's Park. At the moment, They are on their way to the Jubilee House, where they are also expected to present their petition. And then from there, they would make their way to Parliament to present another petition. So three main stops they are looking at here. They've already done one, which is the one at the Supreme Court. They are heading to Jubilee House to present another one, and then they'll end in Parliament. Primarily, the NPP is saying that, look, the current administration is pursuing selective justice. They make reference to cases in which members of the current administration, members of the NDC, which is now governing the country, they were facing prosecution under the previous administration. But when the new government came in, the Attorney General filed nolle prosequi in some of the cases, in fact, all the cases that were standing, that were before the courts. And the NPP says that in one breath, the Attorney General under the current administration is filing nolle prosequi, discontinuing cases that were being pursued under the previous administration. And then in another breath, he is, prosecuting other members of the NPP. And that's where they say the justice system is being applied selectively.
All right, thank you very much. Nadede Tete will bring you more updates as the protest continues in Ghana. But now we head to Nigeria, where members of the Take It Back movement marched on Wednesday, protesting the rising cost of living and what they describe as bad governance. They are therefore demanding government action to address economic hardship and pursue democratic reforms. During Wednesday's march in Abuja, a rival group staged a counter-protest urging security agencies to stop what it describes as attempts to destabilize the country. WDR's Usman Umar completes the story.
Protest returns to parts of Lagos and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, as members of the Take It Back movement and other civil society groups rallied over what they described as worsening economic hardship, insecurity, and governance challenges. Protesters carried placards calling on the government to address the rising cost of living, inflation, and unemployment, insisting that peaceful protest remains a constitutional right. Security operatives monitored the largely peaceful demonstrations.
The Take It Back movement persons, organization members have gathered this morning to express their displeasure as to the lawlessness that is going on in Nigeria, as to the backwardness, as to, the fact that the government is constitutionally sanctioned with the duty, to secure the lives of Nigerians by virtue of Section 14 of the Constitution, but they have incurably failed in this regard.
But in Abuja, a counter-protest emerged, with demonstrators distancing themselves from the Take It Back movement and its leader, Omoyele Sowore. The group accused Sowore of using repeated protests to create instability and called on the Nigeria police to enforce the law.
We have asked Sowore, time without number, he should go to the ballot if he wants to become a president of Federal Republic of Nigeria. What we are saying now is that he keep on doing shenanigans by calling Mr. President a criminal and inviting foreign donors. They have been sponsoring him to destabilize our country.
The parallel demonstrations underscore the deep divisions over how citizens should express dissatisfaction with the country's economic and political challenges. While one group insists that sustained public protests are necessary to demand accountability, the other argues that such actions risk undermining national stability. The Bola Tinubu-led administration has so far appealed for calm while urging all parties to remain law-abiding. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now in Senegal, 3 commentators linked to Ousmane Sonko's Pastef party have been convicted of insulting the head of state. A court in Dakar also found them guilty of making statements deemed contrary to public morals. The 3 had called for the death of whoever betrayed the Pastef project, remarks that prosecutors interpreted as targeting President Bassirou Diomaye Faye. Here's Abdullah Hassan with the details.
The court sentenced Laminu Jaro to 3 months in prison, while Ustaz Cherb and Njai Tuba each received 2-month prison terms. All 3 men were also fined 500,000 CFA francs each. The 3 commentators who work for a pro-Pastef online media outlet were arrested on July 28 at their newsroom. During the trial, Jaro, who was previously convicted in October 2025 for similar offenses, told the court he was merely commenting on current affairs. Ustaz Cherb and Njai Tuba maintained that they did not mention anyone by name in the video at the center of the case. The three defendants insisted that discussion was not intended to target President Bassirou Diomaye Faye. This is not the first time individuals have been convicted for insulting the head of state. Senegalese human rights organizations have repeatedly warned that such prosecutions pose a threat to freedom of expression.
That was Abdullah Hassan with that report. Let's turn to Benin as the new Senate is electing its first leadership team today. The election follows the Constitutional Court's approval of the Senate's internal regulation on August 3rd, clearing the way for the vote after the institution was officially installed on July 30. Yet, under Article 1135 of the Constitution, the Senate's bureau consists of a president, a vice president, and a rapporteur, each elected for a renewable 5-year term. Francis Boniface reports.
According to Benin's constitution, only the Senate's 11 ex officio members are eligible to serve as president or vice president. Those eligible include former presidents Nicéphore Dieudonné Soglo, Boni Yayi, and Patrice Talon. Others are former National Assembly presidents Adrien Ungbeji, Bruna Musu, Matouan Kofi Nagu, Antoine Kolowale Iji, and Louis Vlavono, as well as former Constitutional Court presidents Elisabeth Pognon, Théodore Holo, and Robert Dossou. The position of rapporteur is open to all senators. The participation of former President Boni Yayi adds significant political interest to the vote. After initially rejecting the Senate following the 2025 constitutional reform that created the institution, he announced on July 22 that he would take his seat. Boni Yayi said the country's political landscape had changed and argued that the Senate could become an important platform for political dialogue and for representing the concerns of Beninese people. Today's election will establish the Senate's first leadership and move Benin another step forward in implementing its bicameral parliamentary system.
That was Francis Boniface with that report. Today, August 6th, marks the International Day of Awareness of the Special Development Needs and Challenges of Landlocked Developing Countries. Across the world, there are 32 landlocked developing countries, 16 in Africa and 3 in West Africa. Without direct access to the sea, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger depend on their coastal neighbors to reach global markets. In Niamey, authorities are implementing a range of initiatives to reduce these constraints and strengthen the country's economic resilience. Christopher, a teacher, has more.
Niger is a landlocked country covering more than 1 million square kilometers, which remains heavily dependent on imports, a dependency that was further exposed after ECOWAS sanctions on the state following the 2023 coup. Since then, the country has stepped up efforts to build greater economic resilience. Habib Bougado is Secretary General of the National Union of Freight Forwarders of Niger.
I would also like to urge authorities, whether in Niger or in coastal countries, to recognize that at any time, borders can be closed and trade routes disrupted. This should remind them of the urgent need to create alternatives and ensure that railway, air and road networks are developed to meet the needs of the people they govern. They must understand that a country with access to the sea can one day use that advantage as a means of pressure by closing borders or restricting access in an attempt to economically isolate a landlocked neighbor. Fortunately, Niger's experience offers important lessons for other landlocked countries.
Since 2023, numerous partnerships have been signed to facilitate trade, particularly commercial exchanges, says Habib Bougado. At the national level, more than 200 industrial units have been established, representing investment of over 465 billion CFA francs, according to the Ministry of Trade. Nayusa Jimaro is a technical advisor of the Minister of Trade.
Every country that industrializes gradually reduces its dependence on imports and in turn promotes the value of its own local products. This is the approach being pursued by the government of Niger. In the future, the establishment of an industrial development fund is expected to encourage the creation of industries, especially among young entrepreneurs, by providing them with access to capital to establish small, medium and large-scale industrial units.
The next step for Niger is the reopening of its border with neighboring Benin, the country's main transit route for imports and exports, to facilitate and boost trade.
There was a report by correspondent Yakuba Habibulai and presented by Christopher Aticho. You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar and around the world at wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Nationwide demonstration intensifies in Ghana over what opposition calls growing undemocratic trends. Take It Back movement in Nigeria protests deteriorating economic and security crisis. Benin's new Senate elects first leadership team after its installation in July. And in Senegal, a court convicts 3 pro-Pastef commentators for remarks against the head of state. Still ahead in the news, we have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
From the heart of Nigerian politics, this is Yechi Nusasitu in Abuja, and you are listening to WADR 94.9 FM Dakar.
Thank you for staying with us. A new Afrobarometer flagship report shows that while most Africans support free movement across borders for trade and work, many remain wary of increased immigration into their own countries. The survey also found growing interest in emigration, especially among young people seeking better economic opportunities. Nadede Tete has the details in this report.
The latest Afrobarometer survey suggests Africans are sending mixed signals on migration. On one hand, most support the free movement of people across African borders to boost trade and employment. On the other hand, many would prefer their governments to admit fewer foreign job seekers and refugees. The report, based on interviews with more than 50,000 people in 38 countries, found that although most respondents are comfortable living alongside immigrants, they remain divided on whether immigration benefits their country's economy. It also found that wealthier, more educated and highly skilled Africans are the least supportive of admitting more immigrants. Josephine Sani is a director of communications at Afrobarometer.
On average, we have a modest majority, which is just about 56%, who are saying that they're okay. They favor the idea of having people move freely within the sub-region to work. But we have 40% who are saying that, no, their government should actually limit this kind of free movement so that it protects the citizens' access to jobs and opportunities.
At the same time, the survey shows that nearly half of Africans have considered leaving their own countries, with economic opportunity and hardship cited as the main reasons. The desire to emigrate is strongest among young people, the educated and West Africans, with Europe and North America topping the list of preferred destinations. Josephine Sani again.
In 20 out of these 31 countries, we saw significant increases, led by Ghana and Gambia. In these 2 countries, the intention to migrate a lot has increased by 24 percentage points.
Afrobarometer says the findings highlights the challenge facing African governments as they pursue regional integration under initiatives such as the African Continental Free Trade Area, while addressing citizens' concerns over jobs, economic opportunities and migration. For WADR, Nadede Tete, Accra.
In Guinea, concerns are mounting among citizens and witnesses of the September 28, 2009 Stadium Massacre trial. Their fears have grown after Colonel Bienvenu Lama, once the main accused in the deadly crackdown that killed more than 150 people in Conakry, was acquitted and then promoted. After months of proceedings, Lama was cleared of charges. Just days later, he was elevated to the rank of Brigadier General. Now survivors and witnesses are calling on the Ministry of Justice to step up protection measures, saying their safety must be guaranteed as the trial enters its next phase. Augustine Coley completes the story.
Colonel Bienvenu Lama has been promoted to the rank of Brigadier General following a presidential decree issued 4 days ago. The promotion comes just 1 week after his acquittal in the second phase of the trial into the September 28, 2009 Stadium Massacre. Laman had been facing charges including crimes against humanity, rape and torture. His acquittal has sparked strong criticism from victims and civil parties who have announced plans to appeal the decision. Days after his release, several witnesses who testified against General Bienvenu Lama during the trial say they are concerned about his safety. The development has raised fresh questions, including whether the newly promoted general will face trial again if an appeal is granted. Before Lama, former junta leader Captain Musa Dades Kamara, who was convicted of crimes against humanity in the same case, received a presidential pardon. Other key figures in the trial, including Colonel Claude Pivy and Commander Tumba Jakite, also faced proceedings in the case. Pivy and Jakite later died while in detention.
That was Augustine Colley with that report.
This is the Newspaper Review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the Newspaper Review.
The Newspaper Review.
For the press review this afternoon, Nadede Tete is on standby.
Greetings, welcome to the newspaper review segment. We'll start off with the Ghanaian Times newspaper front page. Water quality improves slightly, but illegal mining still a threat. That's according to the Water Research Council. President Mahama inspires African and Caribbean youth to become problem solvers. Negotiations begin on flagship Volta Corridor project. Negotiations begin on flagship Volta Corridor project. Other stories here. Obuasi Tech disturbances. Headmaster battling for his life, while school has also been closed down. The Daily Guide newspaper. NPP and NDC lock horns over democracy demonstration and helicopter crash anniversary. Well, the NPP has embarked on a protest. They have christened it Democracy Under Attack. While the same day happens to be the anniversary of the unfortunate passing of some 8 in that helicopter crash. So there's an ongoing memorial taking place, whereas the protest by the NPP is also taking place. Other stories here. Obuasi Senior High Technical School students beat headmaster over baby burial claims. 6 of them have been arrested. The Chronicle newspaper front page. IMF warns Ghana over reliance on gold exports is very dangerous. Other stories. Complete existing Accra-Kumasi highway to save lives. The minority is asking the government. The National Voice. Democracy Under Attack demonstration to hit Accra today is underway to defend constitutional rule. That should be it for the newspaper review segment. It's back to you in the studio.
Many thanks to Nadede Tete for the newspaper review.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest this afternoon is John Rogers, Director General of the Sierra Leone Disaster Management Agency. In this interview, he speaks about measures being taken after the recent flooding left at least 4 people dead and thousands of residents displaced in the capital, Freetown. However, the Meteorological Agency is warning of more heavy rainfall in the coming days. John Rogers says emergency response teams remain on the ground to support hundreds of residents. Take a listen.
We had inclement weather. We had too much downpour of rain. Of course, we had a weather forecast from the ECOWAS Situation Room, the African Union Situation Room, and from the Sierra Leone Meteorological Agency, telling us of inclement weather that we are going to have heavy downpour of rain. Indeed, there was a heavy downpour of rain that resulted to flooding in some communities in Freetown and around Freetown. The rainfall lasted for a period of 6 to 7 hours and made some areas become inundated. That resulted to flooding. Some of the areas that were impacted, some of them were marshy lands where people had actually gone and constructed buildings where they were not supposed to have constructed buildings. And because of that, when we had a heavy downpour of rain, those areas became flooded. Areas like a place called Poto at the back of the part of the city. There's a second place which is around the western part of the city that is referred to as Meshkem. There is a tall place that stretches at the back of Freetown Supermarket, coming down as far as Kokri, where you have the army headquarters. All of the back of those areas were heavily inundated by heavy downpour of rain.
Your office, through the ECOWAS Situation Room, had access to early warnings about the risk of severe flooding, as you stated. Given that climate projections indicate West Africa will continue to experience heavier rainfall, what measures has the government put in place to reduce the impact of floods and strengthen preparedness?
The National Disaster Management Agency has responsibility of ensuring that we are able to prevent, to mitigate, to respond, and to recover from those kinds of disaster events. So because of that, we are able to jack up our structure in terms of response mechanism. We are in the field. We are making sure that we are able to help the people that were impacted by the rain, by the flood. Where I had just made mention about 300 houses were impacted by that particular flood at Poto, at the back of Juba Hills. And the people were displaced, temporarily displaced. Of course, it was not a permanent displacement. They had cause to leave their settlement. They went out. There are other areas where the flood waters became very high and the velocity, the speed with which it was moving was very high. Some people were swept away by the flood waters, but we were able to help them out by making sure that we were able to do rescue operation and they were able to join their families. Indeed, 4 people died as a result of that particular event, and we were able to make sure that we took the corpse to the mortuary for preservation and for medical attention.
For communities already affected, particularly where more than 300 homes have been damaged, are there plans for temporary shelter, including food assistance and other humanitarian support for displaced families?
We have 2 plans. The first one is a flood mitigation strategy and plan, and the second one is a flood preparedness and response plan. Those plans are being activated. Our national situation is activated. Our colleagues are at work. We are having coordination at the strategic, the operational, and the tactical level. We are collecting data. The moment we finish analyzing the data, we would know clearly the needs of the population in terms of food, in terms of shelter, in terms of protection, in terms of medical, etc., etc. So these are things that we are doing simultaneously.
That was John Rogers, and he is the Director General of Sierra Leone's Disaster Management Agency. In sports, the Confederation of African Football CAF is conducting the preliminary round draws for the Total Energies CAF Champions League and Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup 2026-2027 in Cairo, Egypt today. The Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup draw will begin at 2 p.m. Cairo time and 11 GMT, followed by the Total Energies CAF Champions League draw at 3 Cairo time and midday GMT. The draw will map out the route for the group stage of the 2 competitions, with 61 clubs entered in the Total Energies CAF Champions League and 56 set to compete in the Total Energies CAF Confederation Cup. Malawi booked their place in the quarterfinals of the Total Energies CAF Women's Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2026 despite suffering a 2-1 defeat to Zambia in their final Group C match on Wednesday evening. The Scorchers advanced on goals scored in head-to-head games after a dramatic conclusion of the group, finishing top of the standing ahead of defending champions Nigeria, who defeated Egypt 4-2 in the other Group C fixture. The final whistle confirmed the Scorchers' progression despite the loss, while the Copper Queens see their Total Energies CAF WAFCON Morocco 2026 campaign come to an unfortunate end. And with that, we have come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Meldeju for the technical assistance to interact with us via social media platforms X, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at WADR English. I am Veronique Njai. Good afternoon.